Welcome to the podcast Crash, Burn, Rise Again, where we share stories of burning out and rebuilding better. Join myself, Shireen Lister, your host, and my special guests as we share our personal journeys through burnout, stress, overwhelm, and more, and show how we came out the other side. Learn and leverage from the lessons and wisdom we gained along the way so we can help you to rise too. Hello, welcome to episode 10 of the podcast. Oh my gosh, I can't believe that we are up to 10 already. What a whirlwind it's been. A really great and fun couple of months. I'm really enjoying leaning into recording the podcast, sharing stuff with you, hearing some of your responses and reactions to it. And today's topic is perfectionism. And in fact, I'm calling today's episode The Perils of Perfectionism. And I say that lovingly, and I say that as I refer to myself as a recovering perfectionist. So it's still a habit and a self-sabotaging pattern that I am personally working through. But why I'm talking about it today is I think it's a really important topic in regards to burnout. For me, my perfectionist tendencies were a huge contributor to my burnout. And I think that's quite a common thing, that if we are a little bit that way inclined, whether we know it or not, that is a factor that can influence that sort of behaviors that lead to and create some burnout. So just remember, burnout's often when we're pushing more than we can handle, when we're not stopping and resting and recovering and nurturing ourselves and having that balance outside of whatever we're pushing in. And perfectionism can kind of lead to those behaviors. I think it's where we kind of push more than we need, and that can lead to then burnout, where we are pushed more than we can handle. I really think that's a direct correlation. So I want to start by sharing a little bit about how perfectionism kind of shows up, what it might be, what it was and is for me, and how I deal with that. Because I'm not always sure that everyone understands stuff, because this isn't the stuff that we're taught always when we're young. Well, hopefully that's changing more and more. It definitely is with the kids in my life. I'm trying to educate them on things. I'm trying to model a different way of doing things. And even when I was teaching in high schools, we were starting to have a little bit more of this pastoral care stuff be about well-being, stress management, self-regulation, things like that, to help educate kids. But definitely when I was growing up, it wasn't a thing. We just didn't talk about it. So it's okay if you don't know. And even if you were taught, it's okay if you still don't know. We learn things sometimes when they're relevant and sometimes when we're ready to learn stuff. So if you're here now and you're listening and you have light bulb moments, it's because you are ready. It's because your system is going, hey, I need and I want this information right now. And so that's also a cue to make some change then, if we hear, to really sort of shift things up for ourselves. So perfectionism is, in essence, it's when we try to do things perfectly, or when we push to do everything or push to do things endlessly. So it can show up in different ways, in different people and in different contexts for sure. So it's not just a one and only thing. So for some people, that looks like we work really hard on tasks or projects or things like that. I'm thinking in a work context here. We push really hard to get things perfect or as near to perfect as we can. Yeah. And it might mean that we put in extra hours or extra effort to really finesse something. Or it may be that we never complete or submit some things or show things to people because we don't feel that they're completed. Now, I want to be really clear here that I am all for wanting to work and achieve to a high standard and to take pride in our effort and work. Totally for that. Perfectionism is next level, I think, when I'm talking about it in this sense of wanting to perfect things. So we can really take value and pride in our work and really want to do a detailed, specific, well-curated job, but without trying to make it perfect. Because I'm going to let you in on a little secret now that I probably should have started at the top of the show with. Stop trying to be perfect because it's impossible. We chase perfectionism sometimes in all sorts of areas in our lives. And this is something I'm telling myself as much as I'm telling you. But we are human beings. We are going to F up sometimes. We are going to make errors. We are going to misjudge things, misinterpret stuff, put things through our own sorts of lenses in different ways, and it not be perfect. It's not the nature of us as human beings, as animals, that we are perfect. I hate to break it to you right now. But there's also some relief in that, I think, as a perfectionist. Okay, well, I can't be perfect, so I don't need to keep trying to push so hard. But anyway, to get back to, where we really try and finesse that work. So when the difference between just trying to achieve to a high level and someone who is a perfectionist, I think, might be things like knowing the difference about the tasks that matter and don't matter in terms of the amount of effort and finesse and detail we put in on it. So maybe some things just need to be a tick and flick, like it's done. When maybe other things you need to make sure are really specific and detailed. So I can think right now in some of the VA work that I do, for example, 2 sorts of tasks that I might do in a day. And one is that I track in our task system. I keep a record of clients whose recurring payment has failed because, there wasn't money in the account that day or whatever. And I just flag it in our system as a task for me to keep track of for the next week. So I can pay attention to if that payment comes through or if I need to follow up. It is just a note in the system for me to do the task in the subsequent day. So I just kind of quickly type something in, like tracked such and such as payment failed for blah, blah, blah program, and put in some dates for roughly the next week. They usually get moved around, or some like by the next day they're sorted. That can just be done. It just needs to have the name and the program and a due date put in for next week. And it's there for me to know what to do and see. It doesn't need to be an A+ standard. It doesn't matter if I have a capital letter here and a this there. It just needs to be in the right place with the basic information. So that doesn't need to be even anywhere near close to perfect. Another task that I commonly do, though, is I send out each month a kind of like a newsletter email with all the dates for the upcoming month for paid clients in the program. So that there might be about 6 different dates for across 3 different programs. And I pull it from different calendars and things and put all that in with the links and so on. Now, if I'm not doing that to a high standard, I'm going to end up with missing links or wrong dates or not including things and so on. So I need to make sure that, not that I'm trying to make it perfect, that I'm trying to make it accurate, that I'm caring about the detail more. Can you see the difference between one of those tasks can just be done? One requires a high standard in order to do it properly. And I think sometimes as a perfectionist, we can lack the ability to differentiate between those sorts of things. So we're doing everything to that super high standard plus, and this is why it can take a really long time to get through our workload and mean that we end up working longer than we should. Hello, burnout. It means that we maybe can feel the pressure of things mounting. Oh my God, my inbox and my to-do list keeps growing, but I'm not ticking things off. Hello, stress, which leads to burnout. And it can be really demoralizing when we feel like we're not doing anything to the standard that we're setting, to that super ridiculous high standard of perfection. So we also get down about things, and we can lose some confidence about our abilities to work. We can get slower at things. We can not turn stuff in. And when we have that lower self-worth, we're also not looking after ourselves internally so well. We don't have the same resources in terms of resilience and stress management and so on, which again can lead to burnout. Can you see why I'm saying perfectionism can really relate to burnout? Yep, and this is just in one iteration of it. And perfectionism can sometimes be, as I was saying, where we don't complete things, because perfectionism is really based in fear. And I'm not going to get into that in too much depth today. I run trainings on this sort of stuff where I really unpack it down to a deep level of how it's a fear. But, we fear that what we're doing isn't going to be good enough, that it's not going to be accepted, we're not going to be considered good enough, worthy, okay, capable, all those things. So sometimes it means that we don't put things out there. You don't go for that job or that promotion. You don't do that work thing. You don't do that extra thing that's going to change stuff for you. So if we're not submitting things at work, for example, then we might be working 3 times as hard to try and get something else done instead at work, or to find a workaround, which can put pressure on ourselves. If we're not doing it in terms of that other job opportunity or that other thing, we might be staying in situations that aren't serving us well, or are burning us out, or toxic work environments that we don't enjoy. We also sometimes then are trying really hard to do lots of things well if we're worried that we're not doing something well. So we can then really lack balance and rest, yeah? Because we're like, oh, I'm not very good at one thing, so I best do 5 at a decent level, yeah? And I'm going to tell you, most of the time, you're probably more than good enough at it. We just have that low self-worth and self-value about it when we have these perfectionist ways. And that's the biggest thing that undermines our well-being and can lead to the burnout, I think. Excuse me while I have a drink. I get so excited and then I talk lots and I don't breathe enough, and I need extra water, so apologies. So the other way that sometimes perfectionism can show up, which I find really interesting, I never used to think this was perfectionism. I thought it was just the trying to make things perfect and dot all your I's and cross your T's. And after a little while at work, when I figured out how to do what we used to call in my staff room C standard and A standard tasks. You know, you could tell that we were teachers. So like I was talking about those 2 work tasks before, one can just be done to a C standard. It's just got to be done. When others, we want to be at an A standard. And I started to learn how to differentiate those really well. And I was really only doing a C standard for those tasks that's what it required. But I didn't realize that burnout was happening in other ways in my life. Yeah. So I thought, oh, I've got this now. I'm all over it. I'm not getting as stressed as those other people at work who are still trying to do everything to that A+ standard. But perfectionism for me, and it might be for you as well, I'd be keen for you to share or comment or message me after if this is. It's about trying to do everything and be everywhere and be across everything in my life. So this comes in terms of chores, and at the time, it was dog training. So I had a new puppy just when I was starting to set some boundaries at work. I then got a new puppy. This many years ago now. I now have a different dog. Indeed, but this puppy, I was like, I'm going to train him and he's going to be great. But he was a handful. I think he had a little bit of ADHD. He was just scattered and crazy, and a little young puppy. You know, I'm talking a 4, 6, 7-month-old puppy I'm trying to train here. He was a cavoodle, so a Cavalier cross poodle, and he was just, I don't know where his apparently intelligent poodle brain was, because he was just a little bit dense and a little bit scattered and crazy. But I trained him so regularly because he was going to be the best dog ever, and I was going to be the best dog mum and trainer. Like, I had charts to track our training and reward systems, and I would record our sessions and so on and get feedback and all sorts of things. Hello, perfectionism at play. But, you know, my mind was so, I had the blinkers on. So I was like, oh, well, it's not too bad. I'm managing work. I'm starting to say no more. So things are going to be okay. But I just transferred it to my dog training. I just transferred it to my home life. And then even more so, I'm tired because I'm trying to do everything there rather than just go with the flow. And I think that's when burnout happens too. Sometimes when we just keep going, we don't ebb and flow with the natural way of our energy in our lives sometimes. And, you know, the dog, like, dogs don't just perform like when they're training when you want it because the schedule says. Like, they might be having an off day too and things like that, or distracted. But I didn't give time and space for that. I just pushed. But the other thing is, you know, being across everything, being efficient at things for me in my home life. So getting the washing done, getting the food done, knowing where this is, being across this, being involved in everything in my home life to coordinate it and manage it is the other way that perfectionism shows up for me. And I think this is the way that we don't always think of. It's like we are trying to be the best adult, you know, and be across it all. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for efficiency. I'm all for doing things in a way that gets stuff done quicker and easier. And I'm very much an organized and structured person. And I've evolved in how I do that and how I relate to that. So it's in a healthier way, which is probably a whole nother topic to talk about, my control versus organization. Remind me, I might do that one sometime if we're interested. But it's a perfectionist thing when we try and excel at and do everything because we feel that we need to. Again, to be accepted, to be seen as good enough, I feel like I've had to do everything at times and I've got to be great at it. That's perfectionism as well. And again, can you see how that was creating burnout for me? You know, if I'm trying to be across everything, if I'm not accepting help in my life, and even if it was people were doing tasks, I was like, oh yeah, well, let me just organize it though. And it was so I knew what was going on, so I could still manage it in my mind, so I could still get credit for it as well when I do things sometimes. You know, and that's trying to fill our mind and manage all that stuff and that mental load of things is huge. Now, even when I was living on my own and I was single, because there might be people going, yeah, but I have to do all that in my life. I get it. But there's a way that we can go about it that's healthy, and there's ways that we can go about it that are extreme. So, you know, was I trying to always make sure that everything was done, even when I was exhausted? Yes. So burnout, you know, if you're really exhausted, and particularly if you live on your own and you don't have kids and you don't have people dependent on you, you can let things go sometimes. You know, I'm going to share a revelation here, and this may or may not suit you, but my partner actually taught me this one when I moved in. I recently stopped sorting my washing into darks and lights, because nothing that we have is super precious apart from a few special things, which I would wash separately. But day-to-day washing, I just pull out a load's worth and I shove it in the washing machine. I don't need to wash perfectly anymore. And stuff very rarely mutts up. I've not had anything in about 8 months of doing it like that. I've not had a single thing muck up in terms of colors. So, you know, that's me letting go of a perfectionist way of doing it, of just stepping away sometimes and going, hey, it's okay, someone else can sort something out for a while, or I can get a takeaway tonight. That's how we can, you know, even if we're on our own, not be perfectionist always with our diet or something like that, or taking a day off exercise if we really need a rest, rather than going, oh, I need to show that I've ticked the box and done all the things. That was even how I was being a perfectionist in a way that wasn't serving me when I was on my own. So you can see how all these roads don't lead to Rome, they're leading to burnout or exhaustion, or just depleting our internal resources. So when we deplete those resources and we're pushing ourselves, we have less resiliency, less in the tank to cope with when things are stressful or things pop up or things change. It's a big one for me. When things change, it really throws a spanner in the works, and I don't have the tools and the resiliency to just flow with it when I'm in that way. And all these things put us in a place where we're more likely to burn out. But remember, it doesn't have to be this way. So I say I'm a recovering perfectionist for a very good reason. Yeah, I still have moments, I still have things that I do sometimes, but I am working on it. Most definitely, I am working on it. And we do that by, again, I say it every week almost, it's about awareness. Yeah, it's about seeing things, how they're playing out for us, and going, hey, I see that and I want that to be different. And it's starting to change our relationship to these views that we've held, to the habits that we do, and starting to put some new things in place instead. So, you know, try and make it that C standard instead of A, where you can. Ask for some help. Delegate some of your brain stuff, or cut yourself some slack from it where you can. Those are my big tips for now. So I hope this has been helpful, informative to you, whatever. If you've learned something, maybe that would be amazing. Share anything in a DM to me, an email, a comment on any of my socials or on the podcast pages. I'd love to hear what you think about it. Any light bulbs you've had, any feedback, any questions, please reach out. And otherwise, until next time, have a fantastic time. Well, that brings to an end today's episode of Crash, Burn, Rise Again. It's been fantastic to have you with us today, and I hope you can join me next time. I also hope you've really enjoyed and maybe even learned something today. What I ask next is, if you're loving what you're hearing, please subscribe on whatever channel you normally listen to your podcasts, or on my YouTube channel. And you can also follow along and find all previous podcast episodes on my website, recastcoaching.com.au. If you're enjoying the podcast, the other thing I'd love is if you can share and recommend to any friends, family, and colleagues who you think would benefit from a little bit of crash, burn, rise again. Thanks so much, and until next time, bye for now.